מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד.
That's it? הנה מה טוב השני?
That's it. Shabbat Shalom. We're on page 188. Shabbat service, Shabbat morning. We're going to continue with Ma Tovu on page 192. Page 192. blessings, the morning blessings, page 198. Page 198. 198. Just wait till I get my
Amen.
last blessing, like a sog b'divrei Torah, is an invitation to study. When we chose a Greek theme for today, it's not all just feta cheese and spinacchi or moussaka, of course. Greeks and Jews go back a very long way. Does anyone, when was the biggest clash between our civilizations? What do you think? So, Jason? Hanukkah, absolutely. So Hanukkah is the essential struggle between the Jews and the Greeks over the temple. But we have a lot wider history, longer history as well. So I think it's about one between two or one per family. I wanted to have a look at some of the Greek texts about Jews that we have from our history. When we go back to the earliest Greek texts, the philosophers Plato, Aristotle, there's not too much interaction with the Jewish philosophers or Jewish Torah or Jewish theologians of the time. But there is one mention of something in the land of Israel in Aristotle, which we find in his Meteorologica, and I'm sure most of you can understand what he's describing. But would someone like to read that first text for us? Someone with good eyesight, because there's always a balance between paper and eyes these days. Vanessa, would you read that first text for us, if there were any truth?
If there were any truth, the stories they tell about the lake in Palestine, it would further bear out what I say. For they say, if you bind a man or beast and throw him in the floods, and does not sink beneath the surface, and the lake is so bitter and salty that there are no fish in it, and that if you wet clothes in it and shake them out, it cleans them.
Great, so what is Aristotle talking about? Anyone? Joey? What is this miraculous sea?
The Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea, fantastic. Have you been in the Dead Sea?
No.
Not yet, but you've heard about it.
Yeah.
Right, well, the same with Aristotle. You haven't been in it, but you've heard about it, right? So this wonderful sea that you can't sink, and it's very, very salty. There's no fish. There's no life in it. That had reached its way to the ears of Aristotle in Greece as well. Very good. However, there is a text that comes later from Josephus, who was writing in the first century, talking about someone who did, a Jew that maybe the first recorded Jew in Greece. So, Eliana, would you read us this text? Clearchus. Clearchus da Aristotelus, hod mathetes kaiton et tu peripatu philosophun, udenos deuteros esto propoi peri hypnon biblio, facin Aristotele, ton didaskalon autu peritinos andros judeo, itauta historien auto titon logon Aristotele. I just thought I'd help you with the Greek. Keep going in the English.
Clear as a discipline of Aristotle, and in the first rank of the
peripatetic, the wandering
philosophers, relates in his first book on sleep the following anecdote told of the certain Jew by his master.
Do you want to pass the microphone around? Someone else can do it. Yeah, thanks.
Well, the man was a Jew of Coele, Syria. These people are descended from the Indian philosophers. Philosophers, they say, are in India called Kalani, in Syria by the territorial name of Jews, for the district which they inhabit is known as Judea. Their city was a remarkably odd name. They call it Jerusalem. Now this man, who was entertained by a large circle of friends and was on his way from the interior to the coast, not only spoke Greek, but had the soul of a Greek. During my stay in Asia, he visited the same places I did and came to converse with me and some other scholars to test our learning. But as one who had been intimate with many cultivated persons, it was rather he who imparted to us something of his own.
Fantastic. So while Aristotle didn't write much about Jews in his time, later, so Aristotle in the 3rd century, later 1st century CE, we're told that Aristotle had this Jewish contact, and that they didn't have 23andMe at the time and DNA testing, but the Jews we come from. Where does it say we come from? We live in Judea, but we descend from the Indian philosophers, right? So we're really from the east for the Greeks. Okay, good. Would someone read the 3rd text from Theophrastus? This is also kind of the Greek view of the Jews at the time.
And indeed, says Theophrastus, the Syrians, of whom the Jews constitute a part, also now sacrifice live victims according to their old mode of sacrifice. If one ordered us to sacrifice in the same way, we would have recoiled from the entire business. For they are not feasted on the sacrifice, but burning them whole at night, and pouring on them honey and wine. They quickly destroy the offering, in order that the all-seeing sun should not look on the terrible thing, and they do it fasting on the intervening days. During the whole time, being philosophers by race, they converse with each other about the deity, and at night time they make observations of the stars, gazing at them, and calling on God by prayer. They were the first to institute sacrifices both of other living beings and themselves, yet they did it by compulsion, and not from eagerness for it.
So it's all, usually we read our own texts about our history, right? We read the Bible, we read Jewish texts. It's always nice to look at a text from outside the canon and see what other people think of us. So here, this is the Greek view about sacrificing. They find it a bit brutal. We at Rosh Hashanah we said that we took away the idea of child sacrifice or human sacrifice. It's not something we do. Right? Isaac gets threatened with it. He's almost there, but then human sacrifice is not a Jewish thing. And we always congratulate ourselves that we were pioneers in not sacrificing people. But for the Greeks, they kind of they sacrifice themselves. They sacrifice animals. For them, we're no better, we're worse than everybody else. Okay, so this is another point of view. And just one more text for now. If someone read number 4 from Hecataeus.
When in ancient times a pestilence arose in Egypt, the common people ascribed their troubles to the working of a divine agency. For indeed, with many strangers of all sorts dwelling in their midst and practicing different rites of religion and sacrifice, their own traditional observances in honor of the gods had fallen into disuse. Hence, the natives of the land surmised that unless they removed the foreigners, their troubles would never be resolved. The greater number were driven into what is now called Judea, which is not far distant from Egypt, and was at that time utterly uninhabited. The colony was headed by a man called Moses, outstanding both for his wisdom and his courage. On taking possession of the land he founded, besides other cities, one that is now the most renowned of all, for the land called Jerusalem. In addition, he established the temple that they hold in chief veneration, instituted their forms of worship and ritual, drew up their laws, and ordered their political institution. He also divided them into 12 tribes, but he had no images whatsoever of gods made for them, being of the opinion that God is not in human form.
Thank you. So again, a slightly different take on the Exodus story. We tell it that we wanted to go away, we wanted to escape the slavery, to get out of Egypt, to get back to Israel. But the way the Greeks tell it is a little bit different. Rather, the Egyptians were suffering from plague. We have the plagues in our story too. And they got rid of all the foreigners, and the Jews were considered foreigners and ended up in Jerusalem. They have a slightly different take on Moses as well. I think we'd agree he was wise and courageous. But of course, Moses didn't get to Jerusalem himself, right? He was stopped in our version on the outside of the land. So how did he establish the temple? We have a tabernacle, a mobile temple in the desert, but he didn't actually go into Jerusalem and institute the worship there. So it's interesting what the Greeks know about the Torah, about the stories that we have, and it's also interesting the differences, I think, between the way they tell the story and the story that we know. Maybe we have a little bit of Hanukkah, as Jason mentioned before. This is the big clash. Someone just read us text 5, and then we'll move on with the service. Diodorus.
Sure. When King Antiochus said Diodorus was laying siege to Jerusalem, the Jews held out for a time, but when all their supplies were exhausted, they found themselves compelled to make overtures for a cessation of hostilities. Now the majority of his friends advised the king to take the city by storm and to wipe out completely the Jews, since they, alone of all nations, avoid dealing with any other people and look upon all men as their enemies. His friends reminded Antiochus of the enmity that in past his ancestors had felt for this people, but the king, being a magnanimous and mild-mannered person, took hostages but dismissed the charges against the Jews, once he had exacted the tribute that was due and had dismantled the walls of Jerusalem.
Fantastic. This is from the 1st century BCE, referring to the Hanukkah story, which goes back to about 170, 165 BCE, so we're talking 100 years later. And of course we tell about great victory over the Greeks, that the many were defeated by the few. The mighty empire, the Greek empire, was defeated by the locals. But of course the way the Greeks tell the story is a little bit different. Well, it was just because the king was kind of a nice guy. Like, people were advising him, kill them all, kill them to a man. But the king, being magnanimous and mild-mannered, well, no, let them go, and maybe that's why we had our victory. So again, it's great to see the stories be corroborated. Like there's a common history that kind of gives us some affirmation of the stories. But at the same time, it's very interesting to see a different take on the stories as well. We're going to go back to a few more Greek texts later on, but let's continue with the service with the Psalms now. Let's continue with Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, page 214, Psalm 92, 214.
Thank you.
page, let's continue the psalm with Tzadik Katana Yifrach. May the righteous flourish on the Psalm 150, Hallelujah, page 218. Page 218. Page 224 for the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadal, Shemel, Amen.
כל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמירה במבורך, לעולם רב מהמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, יתברך ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתקטע ויתעלה יתעלה שמי תקדשה וריחו לילה לילה ננקול בחטא תשירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמיר ימה לירו
we traditionally look in this direction towards Jerusalem. Page 226. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Let's continue in English on page 229. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown to the righteous. The promise that your light will become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Order of language and light. Help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai yotzeh hamolot. Over the page 230.
Abba, Abba. Abba.
Before the
בעולם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וכשאתה מלאות על ידיך, והיו תותפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו, עשיתם במצוותיי, הייתם קדושים אלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם. Through the pages, page 240, to the shores of the sea, Micha Mocha, page 240. Facing page, the good in us will win over all the wickedness, over all the wrongs we've done. We will look back at the pages of written history and be amazed, and then we will laugh and sing, and the good that is in us, children in their cradles, will have won. Our hearts beat with certainty that there is a day, an hour, and a mountain called Zion, and that all of the sufferings will gather there and become song, ringing out into every corner of the earth from end to end, and the nations will hear it, and like the caravans in the desert will all to that morning throng. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We rise to the Amidah. We begin with as a silent prayer from page 242 all the way through 260. Because today is a special day, Shabbat Shuva, the Shabbat of return between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the words are slightly amended to follow the rubric in the book to make sure you get the right words.
Adonai Zefatai Tifta Ukia Hitehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech avotenu ve'Yevoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah האל הגדול והגיבור והנורא העליון אומר מצבים טובים וקונה הכל וסופר חסדו מאוד ומביא גאולה לבני בניכם למען שמו יעד זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים וחודנו בספר החיים למענך אלוהים חיים מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה הכל הטרם לחושיע מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומציל אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בגבורות ומתומר מלך ממית ומחייב ומצמיח ישועה מי כמוך ברחמים זוכה יצוריו לחיים ברחמים ונאמן אתה חיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי העמור מקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וכזה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי את ציון לדור הדור הללויה לדור ודור לדור הדור לדור ודור נגיד קולך לדור הדור לדור הדור לדור ודור נגיד קולך ולנצח נצחים כנשותך נקדיש כנשות הנקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם לעולם ועד לדור ודור לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד קולך לדור ודור לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד קולך ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. We continue with Yismach, page 250.
וישמחו במלכותך Shomrei Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutecha, Shomrei Shabbat, Korei Shabbat. Ana mikadeshei shiri, כולם ישמעו ויתענגו מטובך, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת קוראי שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו, והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו, ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת קוראי שבת. ועמדת חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי שבת.
B minor.
Thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and in hope, the Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, Shabbat peace, born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God, Baruch atah Adonai, Kadesh Shabbat. And on page 255, ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land in Zion restored in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha lamadecha v'yirah na'amod. Over the page. We acknowledge with thanks that you, Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You're the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. Inscribe all the children of your covenant for a good life. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Baruch atah Adonai, atah shimcha olaha na'eh v'chodo. Number page Sim Shalom 258.
Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Chayim v'chesed v'chamim aleinu, v'kol Yisrael amecha, v'leinu Yitzreinu kavim echad, u'panecha. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Ki u'mecha natan lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Torat Chayim Yorat Chesed U'sata Uvraha Rachamim Aleinu Shalom. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Tov lecha l'ameret amecha, Amcha Yisrael, v'chosha yishlomecha. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvraha.
V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. Nizachem v'nikatev lefanecha. Nizachem v'nikatev lefanecha. V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. Anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael, l'chayim tovim u'shalom. V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. V'sefer chayim, beracha v'shalom, u'parnasa tova. Inscribe us for life, blessing, peace, and prosperity, remembering all of your people, Israel, for life and peace. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom.
Amen.
Eliana and Vanessa, you've done an excellent job this morning leading our prayers. We're looking forward to Vanessa's bat mitzvah in December and Eliana's in March. And you're a very good voice today, and you're going to be excellent at your bat mitzvahs. But we're going to release you from being in front of all of us. As we come to the Torah service, we exchange with our gabbis, with Matt and with Tiffany. We're going to be on page 362. Page 362. Asher, would you please pass around a few of the chumashim? Actually, you're going to have the Torah push on your sheets as well, but let's pass around the chumashim anyway. Okay, so we're on page 362. Please rise to the beginning of the Torah service.
Yamod, Yamod, Peter, Yaakov,
אין כמוך באלוהים, אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני אימות לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. הרחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חמות ירושלים, היא לך לבד תבנו, מלך המניסה אדון עולמים.
כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה על ימו ישראל, בקדושתו. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל,
תשתדלו לאדוני איתי, ונרומם שמו יחדיו.
לך אדוני הגדולה, והגדולה לך תפארת, לך נצח וכחול. ככל בשמיים, בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני והמלכה, המתנשא בכל ראש. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, השתחוו, לך קדשו, לך קדשו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, השתחוו, לך קדשו, לך קדשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, ותשתחוו, לך קדשו. Please be seated if you're lucky enough to have a chumash. It's on page 1173. The Torah portion is by Vayelech, Deuteronomy chapter 31. And even if you're not lucky enough to have a chumash, and we have a lot of people more than chumashes today, 1173. 1173 in the chumash, in the big red book. Or you can find it, the text, on your Greek sheets this morning. Because you may well know that one of the earliest translations of the Bible that we still have was the translation into Greek in the Septuagint. Now Septuagint comes from the Greek word Septuaginta, meaning 70, and it was a translation performed by 70 or sometimes 72 translators. Now, I don't know if any of you have been involved in translation projects. Anyone here? We have a lot of multi-talented, multilingual people. But of course it is a challenge when you have one translator to translate a big work like the Bible. So they employed 70 translators. Now, the story goes that each of these 70 translators produced exactly the same translation in the Greek from the Hebrew. God came to them in a vision one night. This is how it's told, and they were inspired to produce exactly the same translation, which of course saves a lot of difficulty with 70 translators arguing over the text. I put the translation not in Greek. I've done enough showing off with my Greek this morning. It was my major at university, long since forgotten, but I can still read a few words, and that's about the extent of it. On the left-hand side of the two columns, and I put the Hebrew and the JPS Hebrew translation on the right-hand side. So we have an English translation of the Greek translation on the left-hand side, and we have English and Hebrew on the right-hand side. And I'd like someone to read us the Septuagint translation, and if anyone can find differences between that and the parallel English translation of the Bible, let's see what we can find. Who would like to read for us? You get a microphone. Joey? Yeah.
And Moses finished speaking all these words to the children of Israel. And then in the Hebrew Bible, it said...
Just do the left hand side.
Just do,
You
okay.
You have to scan the right as we'll, have to work hard at this, but you're reading for the rest of it.
And said to them, I am this day 120 years old. I shall not be able any longer to come in or go.
Yeah. Let's pass it on and go there. I should not be able any longer to come in or go out. Neil, what do you read?
The Lord thy God who goes before thee, he shall destroy these nations before thee, and thou shalt inherit them, and it shall be Joshua that goes before thy face, as the Lord has spoken.
And the Lord thy God shall do to them as he did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites, who were beyond Jordan, into their land, as he destroyed them.
And the Lord has delivered them to you, and ye shall do to them as I charged you.
Be courageous and strong, fear not, neither be cowardly, neither be afraid before them, for it is the Lord your God that advances with you in the midst of you, neither will he by any means forsake thee, nor desert thee.
And Moses called Joshua and said to him before all Israel, Be courageous and strong, for thou shalt go in before this people into the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give to them, and thou shalt give it to them for an inheritance.
And the Lord that goes with thee shall not forsake thee nor abandon thee. Fear not, neither be afraid.
And Moses
wrote the words of this law in a book, and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to the elders of the sons of Israel.
And Moses charged them in that day, saying, After 7 years, in the time of the year of release, in the feast of Tabernacles.
When all Israel come together to appear before the Lord your God in the place which the Lord shall choose, ye shall read this law before all Israel in their ears.
Having assembled the people, the men and the women and the children and the stranger that is in your cities, that they may hear and that they may learn to fear the Lord your God, and they shall hearken to do all the words of this law.
Their sons who have not known shall hear and shall learn to fear the Lord thy God all the days that they live upon the land into which ye go over Jordan to inherit it.
And the Lord says, Behold, the days of thy death are at hand. Call Joshua, and stand ye by the doors of testimony, and I will give him a charge. And Moses said, Joshua went to the tabernacle of testimony, and stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony.
And the Lord descended in the cloud, and stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony. Is that the right one? Okay. And the pillar of the cloud stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony.
And the Lord said to Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will arise and go, whoring after the strange gods of the land, into which they are, and they will and break my covenant which I make with
I will be very angry with them in that day, and I will leave them, and turn my face away from them, and they shall be devoured. And many evils and afflictions shall come upon them, and they shall say in that day, because the Lord my God is not with me, these evils have come upon me.
And I will suffer, turn away my face from them in that day, because of all of the evil doings which have done, because they turned aside after strange gods.
And now we write the words of this song and teach it to the children of Israel, and ye shall put it into their mouth, that this song may witness for me among the children of Israel to their face.
For I will bring them into the good land, which I swear to their fathers, to give to them a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall eat and be filled and satisfy themselves. Then will they turn aside then they shall turn aside after other gods and serve them, and they will provoke me and break my covenant. And this song shall stand up to witness against them, for they shall not forget it out of their mouth, or out of the mouth of their seed. For I know their wickedness, what they are doing here this day before I have brought them into the good land, which I swear to their fathers.
And Moses wrote this song in that day and taught it to the children of Israel.
Verse 23.
And he charged Joshua and said, Be courageous and strong, for thou shalt bring the sons of Israel into the land which the Lord sware to them, and he shall be with thee.
And when Moses finished writing all the words of this law in a book, even to the end, then he charged the Levites who bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, Take the book of this law, and ye shall put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and it shall be there among you for a testimony.
Take the book of this law, and ye shall put it in the side of the ark of the covenant, and the Lord your God, of the Lord your God, and it shall be there among you for a testimony.
For I know thy provocation and thy stiff neck. For yet during my life with you at this day, ye have been provoking in your conduct towards God. How shall ye not also be so after my death?
Gather together to me the heads of your tribes, and your elders, and your judges, and your officers, that I may speak to their ears and these words, and I call both heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death ye will utterly transgress, and turn aside out of the way which I have commanded you, and evil shall come upon you in the latter days, because ye will do evil before the Lord to provoke him to anger by the words of your hands. And Moses spoke all the words of this song even to the end in the ears of the whole assembly.
Thanks everyone. It may sound like quite a long text that we read, but it's actually the shortest entire parasha, the shortest Torah portion in the whole of the cycle. The mitzvah kids, future mitzvah kids, take note that Vayelech is the shortest one that you can do. Did anyone find significant differences between the Greek and the Hebrew? Now, of course, we're comparing a slightly older English with a more modern English, so a lot of the nuance gets lost. But I think what's remarkable is the similarity between the two texts, how it doesn't differ. And of course, the Septuagint, the Greek version, is the version that's older in terms of what we have remaining surviving today. right? A lot of, the Hebrew text presumably, of course, is older. It's where it came from. It's where it was translated from. But we don't have Hebrew Bibles from 2,500 years ago or older. And this is a 3rd century BCE translation that was kept in the Greek. And of course, we know that the Vatican and the Church kind of controlled which texts were destroyed and which texts were guarded over the time. And this, the Greek version of the Bible was the one that was really kept safe, and it helps us a lot. It means that we don't have so much work to do in terms of comparing the two texts. For example, the Targum Onkelos, the Aramaic translation of the Bible, is much more interesting to compare the Aramaic and the Hebrew. And of course, it's also perhaps a surprise to note that Jews 2,000 years ago were not necessarily, or most likely not, Hebrew speakers, even if they were living in Palestine, but they spoke Aramaic and maybe they knew Greek. And it was, this translation, this Septuagint, this Greek version was important also to understand the Bible as well, just as we like to use English versions of the Bible to help us understand the Torah today. So let's move to the Torah reading. We're going to read the same thing in Hebrew, not in Greek, and Tiffany, start the call-ups.
Tamod, Shira bat Abraham v'Sarah.
Where's the guy? Stop me.
Baruch Adonai HaMelech.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai HaMelech Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bacha Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וירד משה וידבר את הדברים האלה אל כל ישראל ויאמר לכם בן 120 שנה אנוכי כיום לא אוכל עוד לצאת ולבוא ואדוני אמר אלי לא תעבור את ידן הזה אדוני אלוהיך הוא אבל לפניך הוא ישמיד את הגויים האלה מלפניך וישכם יהושע הוא עובר לפניך כאשר דבר אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה אמת והעיין עולם נתון בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Stephanie, for the first Shabbat of the year, for the first Aliyah, it's an honor to have you at the Torah, an honor of the Torah, of the Shabbat, of this community, of which you are an immediate past president and one of the first members of the community.
Yamdu, Shoshana bat Abraham v'Sarah v'Tzvi ben Moshe.
Tzvi ben Moshe. Baruch Hu es Adonai HaBoror.
Baruch Adonai HaBoror.
Baruch Adonai HaBoror le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
ויעשה אדוני לכם כאשר עושה לסיחון ולאורות מלכי המורי ולעצם אשר השמיד אותם ונתנם אדוני לפניכם ועשיתם לכם ככל המצווה אשר ציוויתי אתכם חזקו ואמצו אל תיראו ואל תעשו לפניכם כי אדוני אלוהיך הוא כחולך עמך לא יפך ולא יעזבך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר נוסן לנו תורה סמס, וחיי עולם נוטה בצלחנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, נושן התורה.
Amen. We're honored to have Rosita and Harvey at the Torah. We thank them for the wonderful hospitality and how we've seen this Shabbat services blossom until they're going to need probably a bigger home quite soon to fit everyone. Something to think about. Just take it upstairs. And of course, we're very honored that they have Tiffany as our Gabbai Shabbat as well. Thank you.
Yamod Tuvia ben Yaakov HaKohen.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ויקרא משה יהושע ויאמר אליו לעיני כל ישראל חזק ואמץ כי אתה תעבור את העם הזה אל הארץ אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותם לתת לכם ואתה הנחילנה אותם ואדוני הוא הולך לפניך הוא יחיה עמך לא יפתך ולא יעזבך לא תירא ולא תחת ויכתוב משה את התורה הזאת ויתנה אל הכתובים הכהנים בני לוי הנושאים את ארון ברית אדוני ואל כל זקני ישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Told you stand there with all the relief of the father whose daughter celebrated his bat mitzvah last month, which is a wonderful thing. It was a wonderful occasion, and of course we're looking forward to the next one, to the next one as well, and to you and really bringing them to the Torah and educating.
Yamdu, Chazan Avraham Meir ben Yosef Halevi ve'Esther Laya ve'Rachel Malka bat Yosef ve'Fraida.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. ויצב משה אותם לאמור מקץ 7 שנים במועד שנת השמיטה בחג הסוכות בבוא כל ישראל לראות את פני אדוני אלוהיך במקום אשר יבחר תקרא את התורה הזאת נגד כל ישראל באוזניכם הקהל את העם האנשים והטף וגרך אשר בשעריך למען ישמעו למען ילמדו ויראו את אדוני אלוהיכם ושמעו לעשות את כל דברי התורה הזאת ובניכם אשר לא ידעו ישמעו ולימדו ליראה את אדוני אלוהיכם כל הימים אשר אותם חיים על האדמה אשר אותם עוברים את הירדן שמה לרשתה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
It's wonderful to have you both with us these holidays. We're very grateful to you, Rachel, for letting him join us. Martin and Martin sing for us. And we wish you very good voice return as well. And we're looking forward to Conor Drain, especially, and to Yom Kippur. So thank you very much for what you've done for us. Come this side.
Yamdu, Shalom ben Shaul, V'Chava bat Sarah.
Baruch et Adonai HaBarach, Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ויום אדוני אל משה הן קרבו ימיך למות קרא את יהושע והתייצבו באוכל מועד וצוונו וילך משה אל יהושע והתייצבו באוכל מועד וירא אדוני באוכל בעמוד ענן ויעמוד עמוד הענן על פתח האוכל ויאמר אדוני אל משה חינך שכב עם אבותיך וקם העם הזה וזנה אחרי אלוקי נפי הארץ אשר חו בה שמה בקיבו ועזבני וחפה את בריתי אשר קראתי אותו וחרה פי בן ביום ההוא ועזבתיהם והסתרתי פני מכם והיה לאכול ומצאוהו רעות רבות וצרות ואמר ביום ההוא הלא על כי אין אלוקי בקיבי מצאוני הרעות האלה ואנוכי חסדה אסתיר פניי ביום ההוא על כל הרעה אשר עשה כי פנה אל אלוהים אחרים ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה הזאת ולמדה את בני ישראל שימה בפיהם למען תהיה לי השירה הזאת לעד בבני ישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu b'torah v'chai olam atah b'tuheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. It's always nice when old friends drop by, and it's great to have Bing and Bill back with us from Manila, from Sri Lanka. I think where Bill's been working the past few months.
And the last time in Addis Ababa.
And the last time we met was in Addis Ababa, absolutely, when Bill gave me a tour, a whistle-stop tour of the country as I journeyed from Israel to Singapore. One of the best ways, or quickest ways, is through Addis Ababa. Ethiopian Airlines, if you ever want to go that way, is to be recommended, but please get to the gate well before your flight comes, because it's chaos at the airport.
And the land of Aramaic.
And the land of Amharic. Yeah.
Amharic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, yeah. Thank you.
Yamdu, Michael ben Yosef, Bechana bat Aaron.
ברכות אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. כי הביאנו אל האדמה אשר נשבעתי לאבותיו, זבת חלב ודבש ואכול ושבעה, ודשן ופנה אל אלוקים אחרים, ועבדום ונעצוני, והפר את בריתי, והיה כי תמצאון אותו רעות רבות וצרות, וענתה השירה הזאת לפניו לעד, כי לא תשכח מפי זרעו, כי ידעתי את יצרו אשר הוא עושה היום, בטרם אביאנו אל הארץ אשר נשבעתי, ויכתוב משה את השירה הזאת ביום ההוא, וילמדה את בני ישראל, ויצב את יהושע בן נון, ויאמר חזק ואמץ, כי אתה תביא את בני ישראל אל הארץ אשר נשבעתי לכם, ואנוכי אחיה עמך, ויהי ככלות משה לכתוב את דברי התורה הזאת על ספר עד תימן.
הליכו את אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נודע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
So many of us in this expat community live far from our parents and our grandparents, and it's always wonderful to have parents, grandparents with us. You'll kind of end up being grandparents for the whole of the community, not just your own son and children as well. So we're very happy to have you with us all the way from Switzerland.
Thank you very much.
יעמדו אליהו בן נומן ושנה בת צבי וחנה בת יוסף.
Baruch Elam Va'et.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ויצב משה את הלוויים נושא ארון ברית אדוני לאמור, לקח את ספר התורה הזה ושמתם אותו מצד ארון ברית אדוני אלוהיכם, והיה שם ברכה לעד, כי אנוכי ידעתי את מריך ואת אפך הקשה, הן עודני חי עמכם היום, ממרים חייתם עם אדוני, ואף כי אחרי מותי הקילו אלי את כל זקני שבטיכם ושוטריכם, ואדברה באזניכם את הדברים האלה, ואדע בהם את השמיים ואת הארץ, כי ידעתי אחרי מותי כי תשחטון, וסרתם מן הדרך אשר ציוויתי אתכם, וקראתה אתכם הרעה באחרית הימים, כי תעשו את הרע בעיני אדוני, והכניסוהו במעשה ידיכם, לדבר משה באזני כל קהל ישראל את דברי השירה הזאת עד תומם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The glory of our community is its children, and you epitomize that not as children anymore, but as teenagers, which, as you know, is the first stage of Jewish adulthood, which you've already attended about bar mitzvah and bat mitzvahs. We are very honoured to have you in our community, Elijah, Stephanie and Annabelle, and we're grateful for all that you do already in terms of helping in services, children's services, and teaching and everything else, and we look forward to your continued contribution.
a Mishaberach for all those called out today, and then we'll do the Mishaberach and those in need of healing. Mishaberach Avotenu V'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak Ve'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Yivarek Et HaKal Hazeh Ba'avur She'alu Lichvod HaMakom V'Lichvod HaTorah Yizchaz Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yismereihem V'Yitzleihem Mikol Tzara Utzukah Umichal Negeh Umachala V'Yishlach Baracha V'Tzalacha B'Chol Ma'aseh Yadehem Im Kol Yisrael V'Nomar Amen.
Amen.
This is the prayer for healing, so at the pause, if there's anyone you're thinking of, please say their name. Mishaberach Avotenu V'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak Ve'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yivarek Et HaCholim Hekadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rechamim Alehem L'Hachalimam U'Rafotam U'Hachazikam U'Hachoyotam V'Yishlach Lahem Me'era Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh U'Refuat HaGuf Ashta Ba'agala V'Zman Kariv V'Nomar Amen.
Hagba.
Yamod Yamod Shein Ben Yisrael V'Esther.
Would you please rise for Hagba? We're almost at the end of our Torah cycle, so we hope that Shane is right-handed.
Tamod Tamod Rachel Bat Alexander.
Sota Torah shesam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe al shlosha devarim al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed al shlosha devarim על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים
על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על שלושה דברים העולם עומד על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
On page 374, we're telling the Torah, 374. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado. Modo al eretz v'shamayim, v'yarem ke'el yamo techila. נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה בירושה. לכנו עם בכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם, חדש ימינו kekדם. We stay standing. The Elena is on page 586. 586. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לייצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגי הרצות, ולא עשמנו משפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגובר עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שבונות השמיים ויסד הארץ, ובשבי קרוב בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגוהם מרומין. הוא אלוהינו אינו, אמונתנו אל זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו. ידעת היום את חשיבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת עינו. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו We turn to the Kaddish, and it's on page 598, the Mourner's Prayer. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died this season and years past, and those whom we've drawn into our hearts with our own Zichronam Livracha. Their memories will be a blessing. And particularly we think of all those we've lost this past year: Malka Bat Leza Vachaya, Shalom Berman, David Rabin, Leah Bat Yoshua Ramasha Gil, Yisrael Zeyev Ben Shrega, Stephanie Gray, Samuel Gershik, Israel Stern, Moshe Ben Simcha Bunim Halevi Vegolda, Yudit Tzvi Ben Nachum, Hinda Malka Bat Yosef, Bina Binyamina Bat Moshe, Rachel Bat Baruch, Yeshua Ben Avraham, and Helen Miller. And we say the Kaddish for them together, page 598. Yitgadal Yitkadash Shemeorah, Yalma Yivrach V'tei V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon V'yomechon V'chayei V'chol Beit Yisrael, Hagala B'zman Chayei V'niramei, Yehei Shemeorah V'arach Le'lam Ramei L'maya, Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitpa'ar Yitona B'yinaseh, Yitadar Yitlalei Yithalal Shmei Kusham B'richut, Ye'ela Minko B'chata V'shirata, Tushb'chata V'nechamata, Amiran B'yalma V'yiramei, Yehei Shlomo Rabban Shemaya, V'chaim Eleni Gal Kol Yisrael V'yiramei, Osei Shalom V'yimav, V'yaseh Shalom, Eleni Gal Kol Yisrael V'yiramei. Amen. Please be seated, and we're going to pass in the absence of our president to Matt Shapiro to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I prefer not to use a mic because I hate hearing myself, so I hope that's okay. Good morning. It's nice to see people. No, I don't think I can do it. I'm sorry. It's nice to see people I don't usually see here, so when I introduce myself, it's not weird. My name is Matt Shapiro. I'm supposed to be in Singapore as a professor of economics at SMU, so I'm sorry to get two professors in 2 weeks. Gabby was speaking last week. But my profession has changed since I've come here. I'm now the full-time assistant to our president, Yoni Garberg, which is why I'm being asked to speak today, because he feels comfortable just asking me to do whatever he'd like. But actually, he wanted me to talk today about volunteering, and so that's what I'm going to try to do. Specifically, I have a note of what he asked me to say. He said, I should say how lucky I feel to be asked to spend 50 hours a week on the community.
Only 50.
Only 50, right. Don't tell, luckily my boss isn't here, who is part of the community, to hear me say that. In any case, the fact is it's true. I do feel very fortunate to spend so much time with this community. It's meant a lot to me, and I'm very happy to speak about volunteering for it. But before I do, I wanted to mention, I think, why and how I got involved. This is my second, I suppose, coming as a Jewish, second part of my Jewish life. I was very active when I was young. When I went to grad school before coming here, grad school has a reputation for destroying your soul and destroying your emotional sensibility, and all that is true. And at that time, I became a 0 times a year Jewish person. And it led to a lot of regret, and I think that's appropriate to talk about now at Yom Kippur when we're thinking about self-reflection, repentance, things like this. And I really felt unhappy, and there was a hole in my life about this huge thing of my youth that was missing. And so when I came to Singapore, I wanted to join a Jewish community. And when I came to Singapore a year ago, I should say, I wanted to join a Jewish community, but my motivation was all about dealing with this regret that I had for so many years in graduate school. But that soon changed once I actually got to meet people here. The first person I met was the rabbi, who was charismatic enough to convince me to wake up at 7:30, 7:20 on Thursday mornings to come to the minyan and walk down the road. And I regrettably did that initially, feeling like, well, I need 10 people, I'm Jewish, it's right on the way to work, how can I not do that? But over time, it became a very important part of my life. I try to make every Thursday that I'm here, I go, no matter if I've slept or I haven't slept the night before, it's an important part of my life. But there I've met people that have changed my life in Singapore in very positive ways. I didn't meet Harvey and Rosita there, but their hospitality on Saturday mornings have been very important to me. Dina Capo, I did meet on those Thursday morning minions, and her mentorship to me has really made, my renewal into Jewish life more possible. And then not only Dina and the Goldsteins, there have been so many people here that I see that have invited me into their homes over Shabbat over the past year, and all of these things, all these positive things have made me forget that I joined the Jewish community here to deal with regret, and now I'm just very happy to be part of it. And it's been a significant part of making Singapore my home. So the reason why I volunteer is I hope that as part of the work that I do, that for the community, I can make someone who's just traveling through Singapore feel like this can be a home for them as well, even if they're 10,000, I don't know how many miles away I am from home, but it's very, very far. So with that said, let me tell you what you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. There are so many volunteer leaders here. Nora with the school, Raz works in the newsletter, I'm sorry if I'm leaving anybody out, the rabbi, Gabby with the music. Peter, I just discovered today, has a wonderful voice, so I hope he can come to services and sing for us. What I do is I work on the Gabby team with Ramsey, who's not here today, who's usually here, and Dina and Yanni. But we need more people, especially in this coming year as the rabbi is traveling back and forth. We need people to help lead services. So if you're comfortable with our liturgy and you can sing, I have a mild ability, but it's not wonderful. So if you can ease the burden on us, that would be wonderful to help us lead services. Another thing that we need help with is I'm allegedly in charge of the IT, since Greg wanted to step down from that position. And our website is a nightmare to use. I deal with the back end of the website, but it's sometimes also a nightmare to look at. So if you're good at developing websites, the front end of a website, that's something we'd be interested in. But the point is, for all of you people who are new today or who want to get more involved with the community, who want to make our community allow Singapore to feel more like a home for those who are traveling through this country, then just let somebody know. Somebody in leadership, myself, the rabbi, Yanni, anybody, we're willing to find a place for you. So I hope that's something you can do. The final thing I want to mention is this email we sent out earlier this week about the life cycle of your family. We have terrible records on the life cycles of us. We don't know birthdays, we don't know yard sites. I don't know why we don't have this information, but as part of an initiative to make us feel more like a community and be able to celebrate or remember our loved ones together, we'd like to gather this information. So please, if you saw this life cycle email that we sent earlier requesting an update of your records and you haven't responded to it yet, please do fill it out. We hope to use it this coming year to make it more possible to celebrate the milestones, remember our loved ones together as a community. Right. The final thing I should mention are upcoming dates for all the celebrations coming up. If I'm forgetting any, please somebody tell me what I'm forgetting. The most important one, obviously, Yom Kippur at the American Club on Tuesday. It's the American Club, right? On Tuesday night and Wednesday. And then we have a whole menu of events afterward. There's a potluck at the Sukkah that Ramsey and Yoni are making Sunday the 13th. That's next Sunday? Next Sunday? No. No, next Sunday. Next Sunday. Not tomorrow, but next Sunday. On the 19th, there's Shabbat here again. Simchat Torah on the 22nd. And then Bernard and Simone, their daughter Eva, is having her bat mitzvah on the 26th at the Dutch Club. That's correct.
And everyone is invited.
And everyone's invited. The information isn't on Shul Cloud yet, but it will be soon, I hope. All right. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much for listening to me, and have a wonderful meal.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. We have one little more Greek interlude on page 8, number 7 on your sheets. If you could turn there. Of course, we've looked at the Greek-Jewish connection up until about 2,000 years ago, but since then there's been a remarkable history of Greek Jews living in Greece, different parts of Greece. They include the Romaniot Jews. Anyone here a Romaniot Jew descended from the Greek Jews, maybe from Ioannina, or from the main part of Greece? They speaking Judeo-Greek or speaking Yevnit. They're the real Greek Jews. They're not Ashkenazi, they're not Sephardi, they're Romaniot, or something else. There were a lot of Jews who left Spain and Portugal in 1492 and moved around the Mediterranean to Greece as well. In particular, they populated the city of Salonika, or Thessaloniki as it's also known. Anyone been to Salonika? Fantastic. So it was a majority Jewish city. It was a majority Jewish city for a couple of hundred years. It was also known as Sabbatopolis, the city of Shabbat, because the port, Thessaloniki is a port city. The port would close on Saturdays for Shabbat because so many of the dockers, so many of the port harbor workers were Jewish, right? And the Jews in Thessalonica, they had all the jobs. They were, in all the classes. Things started to go wrong in 1912 when Greece kind of won the Balkan War. The Ottoman Empire was collapsing, and there was some land exchange and population exchange, and there was a Greek nationalism that then came upon this multicultural city, Turkish city even, of Salonika, and which led to the Great Fire of Salonika in 1917, when 52,000 Jews were made homeless by a terrible fire that ravaged. And afterwards, the Salonican authorities wouldn't let them rebuild their homes in their place, but kind of stole the land to build something bigger, more impressive. These were basically slums as well, to give them some argument too. And the Jews started moving. Many of them moved to Israel. It's not far around the Mediterranean. Many of them went to help build the port city of Haifa, as well as this is built by Salonican Jews who were strong. When it came to the Holocaust, very difficult for the Greek Jews as well. Some of them managed to hide in the mountains, but there are some terrible stories too. 4,000 Jews were marched from Salonika to Auschwitz, and hardly any of them survived. Even worse, not even worse, but bad as well, in Auschwitz, the rest of the European Jews who could kind of communicate with each other in Yiddish or French or different languages, didn't understand what these Greek Jews were doing there, these kind of strong Docker Greek Jews who only spoke Greek or Ladino, so they were, they didn't consider, some of them weren't considered Jews there too, so it was a whole very difficult, terrible story that we forget about when we concentrate just on Eastern Europe and not on the Greek Jews as well. There was a ship, for example, from Crete, which were deporting the Jews of Crete, which was then sunk, and so there were no survivors basically from Crete as well. Some terrible stories. I don't know whether you've heard of Yehuda Polika, the Israeli singer, but he's a child of Greek Holocaust survivors. And I thought we would sing one of his songs, or try to sing one of his songs, Hakili Saloniki, Wait for Me Saloniki. So let's just read, will someone read the English for us? Or let's read it together. One more border, one more eternity of time, wait for me Saloniki. Long is the road to Greece, wait for me Saloniki. The heart wanders, the blood congeals in the German snow. All of them I lost them there in the Polish death camp. Ashen faces, remnants of life, survivors of the death march. Worn and patched, here they've come to cry in your streets. Freedom has come, a new spring, I'm close to you, Saloniki. Like the faded shadow of a worn-out body, I've come to your gates. One more border, one more eternity of time. Wait for me, Saloniki. Long is the road to Greece. Wait for me, Saloniki. And so this city, Salonika, which was such a Jewish place, now these days it has maybe 1,000 Jews left there. A couple of cities. It's a very interesting port to go and visit. Has a very special feel to it. When I was there, it's like, wow, this is kind of a magical place. Too many shadows, many memories, many souls there perhaps still as well, even today. So let's have a go at trying to sing this song. Gabby has the chords. I'm not too sure of the tune, so do a bit of a hand if anyone actually knows the song, but we'll do our best. עוד גבול אחד, עוד נצח הזמן, חכי לי סלוניקי, רבה הדרך לבית יוון, חכי לי סלוניקי, שותק חלב, קרבו הדם, בשלג של גרמניה, כולם יפדו לי שם, a sense of Greek Jewish culture. We're going to be tasting some of the recipes, some of the amazing recipes that defines Greek Jewish food, and we're looking forward to that. Just one last song, Adon Olam, page 625, led by Cantor Martin. Page 625.
You mind? You want to teach it first? Adon Olam Hashem V'Kerem Kol Yisrael V'Nasa Melech Kol Nasa Melech Shemo Nikra לא דקות לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני ולעם שלו להכירה ולראשית ולתכלית ולא העוז להמשרה והוא אלי חי גואלי וצפור חבלי יצרה והוא ניסי ומנוסני מנקוסי ביום אקרא בידו מפקיד רוחי הייתי שם בעירה עם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Shalom concludes our
service, we're going to make Kiddush. Everyone please be upstanding for Kiddush.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. Bring them, Bnei Yisrael, Oti leolam, Veshamru Bnei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Lasot et HaShabbat ledotam berit olam. ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
לחיים.
לחיים.
That's a good one. And let's have the kids to the front, please, so we can make motzi. Let's have the kids to the front. Anyone who's not yet bar mitzvah, still a kid. Thank you. You guys gonna hold this one together? You hold one each end, don't break it yet. Nico, come and help the kids as well. You can hold this one. Don't break it yet. We're gonna do the blessing. Any more kids? Where are the kids? It's a good time now to come up. Caleb. Joey. What's the end of the mitzvah? Okay. Joey, you coming? Come for the motzi? No? Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Break a piece off. If you get a big bit, then please pass it, share it around with your elders.